I guess for me, those two elements were super important. The element of him being an alien, and then the element of him being a man. And those sound like a contradiction, but I feel like the fun of the movie is that he's more human than human because of the fact that he's an alien. You know, like he comes to Earth, and because he's an alien, he wants desperately all the things that we have naturally, right? Even though he's got these powers, he still in his heart wants just to be loved by his parents, you know, which is a thing I think we all feel. And I think that as an opening, as a beginning, allows you inside of Superman, maybe for the first time. You know, you're looking at the world through his eyes rather than, you know, just looking at him up on screen.
After 2 character essays and 2 what I would like to call fun audio experiments, you'll be forgiven to think that I have no actual idea with what I want to do with my channel, so I think this is a good time as any to finally clarify that. Hi, I'm Mark of Krypton, and I plan to use this channel to talk about stuff I love in depths that simply cannot be reached either on my Instagram, Tumblr or Twitter pages. From movies to games, cartoons, anime, web series, I have a pretty large range of interest. However, as you may have probably guessed, I plan to keep DC related content as my thing for now, which is what I'm gonna be delving into today. So without further ado, let's begin. Now, just so that everyone is up to speed, I'll pretend that you have never heard of this topic before, as it's weird as it's gonna be for someone who's been following it for like a decade now. In 2013, a movie called Man of Steel came out. This Superman film by director Zack Snyder included quite a lot of deviations from what the mainstream public and fans commonly associated with Superman media. Different costumes, different tone, different approach to the character in terms of backstory, vibe and personality. To say that this was met with mixed reception would be, well, the understatement of the century. Depending on who you ask, this iteration of the character is either refreshing, relatable or bold, or a betrayal to everything Superman stands for, and this has been going on up until today. But why? Why the mixed responses and years-long debates? Well, it also goes back to the aforementioned director, whose movies are no stranger to either of those things, Zack Snyder. If you think that a director's job is to make the most straightforward, easily digestible, mass appeal-friendly cinematic experiences, well, you would probably think that Mr. Snyder is awful at this job, because his approach at filmmaking is, well,
yeah, it's not for everybody.
Now, I'm not here to tell you that you need a high IQ to understand Zack Snyder, that he only makes perfect movies, or that you somehow like him something if you dislike his style. Hell, I have my fair share of criticisms when it comes to Zack Snyder's stuff. His filmmaking approach is characterized by breathtaking visuals, love for some sweet slow motions, quote, a hard time keeping it PG, and well, a rather evident lack of interest in sugarcoating things, let's say. And in an industry that usually relies on comforting, light-hearted and entertaining adventures as a form of escapism from reality, that habit has led to the creation of some controversial notions surrounding his work, it being somewhat of an anomaly in the genre. Another very recurring element found in Zack Snyder's material is the habit of presenting multiple subjective perspectives, whether from positive or problematic worldviews, without explicitly condoning or criticizing what's being shown, but rather letting the audience form their own thoughts and feelings on what's being shown, placing faith on their judgment. But unfortunately, sometimes the leaps of faith don't quite stick the landing. Take for example the following 3 films: 300, Sucker Punch and Dawn of the Dead. 300 acts as propaganda for the suicidally pro-war Spartan culture that frames the Spartans as badass heroes and the enemies as literal monsters, because it's a in-universe story told to inspire Spartan soldiers. Sucker Punch has girls in provocative clothing doing cool combat scenes in giant action settings because its outer protagonist imagines herself and her friends were taking control of their lives and bodies, as a form of escape from the cruel realities they're stuck in, to a reality where they're strong and fighting the oppression. Dawn of the Dead, as a preacher on TV, say that zombies are God's punishment for gay people, because that is something a crazy religious person would unfortunately say if such events ever occurred. But I wish to emphasize, this is not the director pushing for arguably problematic ideas. This is him presenting characters that do. Sounds easy enough, right? Well, Since Zack doesn't go out of his way to hold audience's hands while presenting particularly heavy topics and perspectives, this led to some people spreading the notions that he approves such ideas because he isn't openly criticizing them using a very 0-100 logic. So in this in mind, 300 becomes Zack Snyder supports militaristic fascism. Sucker Punch turns into Zack Snyder's a sexist pervert who just wants action and sexiness. And Dawn of the Dead moves into Zack Snyder's homophobic. This kind of bad faith takes usually accompanied by the notion that, since Zack Snyder films have amazing visuals, then that means he wants the audience to approve or even find cool everything that is shown on screen, no matter how awful. And since the awful things and questions are present from a neutral standpoint that doesn't say what a lot of people want to hear, that must mean that Snyder is quote a style of the substance type of guy, who cares about flashy visuals above any kind of character story, which is just not how filmmaking works. But hey, different people will inevitably like different stuff. I'm sure that even Snyder's worst haters have been mostly reasonable about Not really. For whatever reason, the detractors of Zack Snyder's work have always been super passionate to tear down everything he's done, spreading false narratives about him, his fans, his movies, which brings us finally to the true MVP of this whole project of mine, Zack Snyder's interpretation of Clark Kent / Superman, played by Henry Cavill and appeared in Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Multiple characters receiving various different interpretations by different actors and directors is probably not something that's unfamiliar to you whether you're a comic book fan or not. Perhaps you prefer Daniel Craig's James Bond, but your best friend prefers Sean Connery's or the other way around. Well, imagine if fans of the other interpretation use the preferred iteration of the character as a weapon to tear down the one you like, exaggerating traits regarding your preference to the point where they end up describing something that doesn't match the real thing at all, while saying that what they prefer is the real deal, that you are not real fan of the character, despite that you loved it your life for 9 years non-stop. Then their voice grows so loud that the higher ups turn your favorite version into something unrecognizable, what the original was, what you originally loved, all as an attempt to please a very toxic group of entitled people that are just returning bashing the version you liked the very next day. Even if you like the version they're saying is superior, this whole experience has now soured your perception of them because you associate them with, well, this. And that has been my story as a fan of Zack Snyder's interpretation of Superman. There was a time where I pretty much couldn't go anywhere online to enjoy some Superman content without someone making snide comments about how much better X is from Snyder. This is what Superman actually is, Zack Snyder. This is what you fail to understand about the character, Snyder. And again, it's okay to dislike things, but I always say there is such thing as too much of something. There's a mountain, and I mean a mountain, of negative hyperboles and objectively false notions surrounding this version of the Man of Tomorrow. But again, let's see where it all comes down to. You see, conceptually speaking, Superman is a simple character. Last of his planet, raised by two farmers, phenomenal alien powers, becomes a hero. No trauma, grief, or past sins as motivations, unlike most superheroes. Just pure altruism. Simple enough. His powers are usually written in ways that allow him to solve most situations with relative ease. His optimistic perspectives usually comes from the cans just telling him being a good person, and usually put in stories where he is loved and praised by most of the world, factors that usually give him a light-hearted attitude when facing most situations, since again, he's at ease with a lot of things. And let me tell ya, a large portion of the Superman fandom loves the simplicity, finding it comforting and familiar. Even more, they love the idea of Superman as this pure symbol of perfection, an embodiment of hope, an unchanging absolute who always manages to set things right in the best way, who always knows what to say or do in any situation, someone whose sole existence makes the whole world a better place simply by him being him. We'll call this idea the Super Superman idea. Most times, supporters of this idea will point to panels or moments meant to be cute and comforting, with a person facing some kind of struggle and Superman comforting them with either wholesome words and gestures or even a simple smile or wave, with a caption that says, "This is what the true Superman looks like." The problem is, anything that even remotely dares to fly outside the Super Superman era is usually met with kryptonite pitchforks. It's gonna be very hard for me to say this, but a lot of people don't really want Superman to be a character. They want him to be an absolute, never-changing force of good that exists to provide comfort and happiness to the world while never facing any kind of internal struggle, because he is Superman, quote, "He should be better. He only exists to help others for negativity, not to experience it himself." They say this is Superman from the comics, then they use specific comic book panels that fit the criteria while leaving out anything else in the 80 years long history character that doesn't fit. The notion is that he's not a guy fighting for an ideal like he was first conceived as. No, he's an embodiment of an ideal. They're so fixated on this approach that they think anything stemming from it is some kind of attack, going full defensive mode and saying, "Oh, you don't actually like the character, you don't understand what makes it so great," taking out for granted that everyone should only like one type of Superman for the same reasons, the quote, "true one." They think that all the world needs is Superman with bright colors and be cheesy goofy again, as if there was some kind of purity that was tainted or some kind of holy truth that the world forgot about. Zack Snyder didn't give to these fans this kind of Superman they desperately crave and they insist on being true. So rather than maybe just as meaning is not their thing and focus on their preferred approaches and any others enjoy theirs, they insist that it must be a case of Zack Snyder secretly hating the character he decided to make movies about. Yeah, you figure out the logistics behind that. Now, personally, I grew up watching the DC Animated Universe version of Superman and really John Byrne's comic book run of the character, both of which included more serious and modern interpretations of the character that dial down the cheesy symbol perfection status but underline the man in Superman, writing him as a flawed person like any other, capable of human flaws and struggles, rather than being an embodiment of any specific concepts.
I'm not the man who killed President Luthor. Right now, I wish to heaven that I were, but I'm not.
So you're not such a Boy Scout after all.
Never even made it to my first merit badge.
And when looked into it, Zack Snyder's more groundless, whimsical version of the character very clearly takes after these two aforementioned interpretations. The action, serious tone, characterization of Superman as a more vulnerable and unsure, Lois as a career-driven redhead, Krypton as an imperfect society, Clark Kent being the true self and not the disguise, it's all there, the inspiration is all there. Hell, entire story beats and iconography are straight up pulled from similarly serious stories, such as Superman Earth 1, Superman Birthright, Superman Peace on Earth, but an abundance of Superman fans are just so attached to the idea of the Super Superman, who always manages to find the solution and always change the world, but never letting him change him because after all, change is the enemy of familiarity. But they can only see the character's potential as a symbol, not a person. When Zack Snyder and his crew set out to do Man of Steel, he made it with the following question in mind: what if Superman lived in a world like our own? And every choice made with his take on the character was made to support that. The cans don't offer clean-cut moral lessons, because hiding a superpowered alien child in a world that can't even tolerate skin color will be no easy task. Clark doesn't always know the best thing to say or do and fucks up quite a lot. He isn't instantly beloved by many or seen as a symbol. The overall tone isn't going out of his way to be comforting and cute like many insist all Superman stories should be. Yet, it's still very much a Superman story, with all the familiar elements like Krypton, Kansas upbringing, Lois, Daily Planet, and most importantly, a guy who simply wants to help others for the sake of it. It's all there. Instead of black and white, this Superman was put into a greyish-white era where it's not just Superman, but it's Superman asterisk yes but. But a lot of people don't want any buts. The reception that Zack Snyder's Superman films has received by many falls perfectly into what's called Ron the Death Eater. Basically, Ron the Death Eater is when the flaws and mistakes of a heroic character get exaggerated to the point of making them look purposefully villainous, or just worse people than what they actually are. The supporters of the Super Superman idea treat this deviation from the clean white simplicity into a sharp turn to the pitch black abyss. For example, this Superman is more quiet and reserved than others, and he experiences a lot of emotional turmoil due to heavy experiences. Becomes, this Superman is an emotionless brute who never smiles. Clark has had a time then when he experienced worry and feels devastated. Becomes, Superman destroyed the entire city with no care. The Kents being portrayed as human parents who live for like safety instead of perfect moral figures that only exist to shape a future superhero. Becomes, the Kents are awful, selfish people. The Superman story being more mature and serious, more intense approach. Becomes, these movies are edgy and grimdark, and so on. Now, personally speaking, I both appreciate, relate to, and was inspired by this version of the character. His struggles, insecurities, how he kept on choosing to try out the world even when he had all reasons not to, the strength he finds in the worlds of his lost ones, how his example ultimately inspired people to become their best selves. Hell, I even modeled my original character's outfit after Cavill's more alien-like House of L suit. Even outside of my personal bubble, there's folks struggling with societal problems, autism, depression, or even immigrant struggles that think this take is the Superman for them. It's no secret how much I appreciate this version of the character, how frustrated am I with the myths surrounding him. I also want to set the director straight and defend this take, like many great content creators before me, just in my own way. Misinformation and decontextualization are always things to fight against, whether we're talking about laser shooting aliens or not. I've been a part of this discussion for years now, and I gathered up enough information to make videos about it. How I'm gonna structure this series exactly? Well, I planned for the first 2 videos to center mostly around complaints from Man of Steel, the first movie, then focus on the somehow even more complaint about Batman v Superman and its myths, defending all the Superman characters adapted by Zack Snyder, and then wrap it all up with a video defending Zack Snyder's take on the adapted Superman story that Batman v Superman partially adapts. Then I'm gonna put all these videos together in one video called the Ultimate DCEU Superman Defense video, and that will be my stance on the matter. My mark on history, if you will. I can't promise the schedule without these are gonna be released, but trust me that it will all happen, and I will obviously post other stuff too in the meantime. But till next time, this is a journey I hope you'll participate with me. I'm Mark of Curtin, and I hope I made your day slightly better.